Hello, everybody. How's the day so far? Good. No post-lunch slump. Maybe the cold temperature will keep you awake. Hopefully, I can keep you entertained as well. My name is Bob Payne. I'm VP of Enterprise Consulting at Lithespeed. Been doing Agile for quite some time, probably too long, I think. The good news is, periodically, every 5 or 10 years, we get something interesting that hits the industry. I'm going to talk about one of those interesting trends, DevOps, today. I'm going to take a slightly different spin on it. I'm also the chair of the Agile DC conference. It's a for-benefit conference, and we generally last year we raised about $43,000 for not-for-profits. That's run at Gallaudet. AgileDC.org. Tickets went on sale today, so hopefully you should be able to buy those today if you wish. So, a little bit of history. I'm old enough to have actually listened to this on vinyl. And we really started delivering things, especially through the 90s, 80s and 90s, using this typical V model of development, sometimes called plan-driven, waterfall. But we're fundamentally gathering things, refining them, trying to understand them better, and then we come around and we start to build and validate quality. So, and this is sort of a pejorative term, the big requirements up front, big design up front. But those were there for a reason, and a lot of that reason was around safety and making sure that we were delivering the right things. Unfortunately, our cycle times get longer and longer. It takes us longer and longer to deliver change to the marketplace. And when we have big things, anybody else think of something that goes along with implementation or release that has the word big in it? The Big Bang release, right? Why do we call it the Big Bang? Lots of heat and light, massive expansion of costs. Big releases bring big risk. And one of the things that has come to light is, as a way to manage that, Agile delivery and DevOps. But the other things that these models had in common is it assumed that we had a relatively controlled amount of uncertainty. Technical uncertainty, could we build it? What to build? End uncertainty, right? What should we build? Who are our customers? We also had cultural uncertainty. Can the people that we have on this project build it? Not only with the technical uncertainty that might be underlying the product, but could the people we have build it and deliver it on time? So, there's some reasons to sort of think that this idea of an empirical method, a method that is essentially built around this idea of feedback. We do something to build something, but most importantly, to learn something. And we learn about the risk, we learn about the product. And a reaction to that was the Agile Manifesto, right? Agile software delivery had been going on for a few years. The umbrella term Agile had not yet been coined. Scrum, extreme programming, DSDM, other methods, RAD, RUP, if it was done in short delivery cycles, certainly qualifies. And out in Snowmass, they came up with the Agile Manifesto, right? We're laying down the gauntlet against what we perceived as this plan-driven, forward-feeding system. We set it, right? We work the plan, or we plan the work, and then we work the plan. It all goes, hopefully, without a hitch. Well, we said, well, for Agile methods, that's great, but really, people build software, individuals and interactions. I don't care what the earned value numbers tell you, you haven't earned anything until you have some working value, some working software, something that is potentially deliverable and valuable in the marketplace. We want to be able to respond to change. A, we might not have gotten it right, there's some uncertainty, and B, the world doesn't sit still for us to deliver this project, right? Competitors come out with other things, the world changes. We need to respond to change. And all of that should be done to a certain extent with customer collaboration, right? We want our product owners, we want to use Lean UX methods to understand what to build. And that was revolutionary at the time. It has become evolutionary now. It's the status quo in many organizations. Are we the majority of projects yet in Agile? No. But there are very few people, including the government, that can ignore it any longer. It cannot be ignored. It is a standard tool in the project delivery tool belt. So, and behind that manifesto is this, the principles behind the Agile Manifesto. If you haven't read them, go to the site, click through, they're very interesting. And they give you a little more concrete ideas about what this manifesto should, how it should manifest itself, right, if you were following the manifesto. And the absolute first Agile principle was our highest priority. The most important thing we can do on this project, program, and delivery is to satisfy the customer through early and serendipitously continuous delivery of valuable software. It was right there in principle number 1. We want the system to be continuous. We love to have continuous feedback from our product owners if we're using Scrum. We love to be able to flow and test and work with the working software and understand that it has quality if we're using Kanban. But until it actually gets into the real customer's hands delivering software, that's when we start to get real feedback and real value. Now, you could argue that the customer in this case might have been the marketing department that asked for it, the product owner that asked for it, and all of those things are great. We don't want to ignore that. But what a lot of the world is finding, a lot of organizations are finding, is that we need to have fast time to market. And how do you get good at something? Practice, 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 right? So many organizations have started to do, at a minimum, like we're always going to do a monthly release. We're going to do a weekly release. We're going to do a daily release. DevOps came to light when someone magically waved their hands and said, we do 10 releases a day, right? That was revolutionary. People said, you're crazy. How do you do 10 deployments a day? Now, deployments happen with almost every check-in at some organizations. So Agile's great, but we still hit the wall of confusion, right? We built it. We built this beautiful, shiny object. Now the organization has to run it. So what do the Agile teams do? Many of them, throw it over the wall. Same stuff that our other teams have done. They never worked collaboratively with operations, right? We build it, works in my environment, works in the test environment. I don't know why it's not running in production. I don't know why it's not performing in production. Oh, and by the way, that's your problem, right? Development is working for faster and faster change cycles, and operations said, whoa, slow down. I have to live with this crap you're giving me, right? These two things are conflicting, and it is not helpful for our organizations, for the people in our organizations, and ultimately for the business and the customers that they serve. So what is DevOps? There's not a lot of really great definitions out there. I can tell you it's not a set of tools that can be purchased or open source tools. It's not a role or even a team necessarily. It is not a prescriptive process. There are some things that it seems to be, and it will emerge further as more and more people do it. But it is definitely this idea of integration, collaboration between development and operations. We want feedback across the business, delivery and run. We want automations and behavior over documentation and gates. Those seem to be the emergent properties of DevOps, and we're going to talk quite a bit about what are the cultures needed in your organization to bring those things to bear. Most of all, it's a competitive advantage for the people that do it. Right? Big bang implementations, week-long implementations. How often do we release bug fixes? Quite often, right? Why is that not a big deal? Because it just isn't. It's a small bang. It's a tiny, tiny release. Large, big bang, big risk, small release, small risk. The ability to move fast is a drastically competitive advantage for most of our organizations. I like this video, so I'm going to show it. It gives a quick overview of what I'll call the delivery side of DevOps, right? Development and operations. I think there's a bigger thing going on here. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Meet Dave. Dave works for a company whose success is dependent on its ability to offer new and exciting products to its online customers, faster than its competitors. Dave is a developer who writes code for new products, new features, security updates, and bug fixes. Unfortunately, Dave needs to wait weeks for his work to be placed into production. This delay increases the pressure of staying competitive because some competitors are able to deploy new products and features much faster. In addition, this delay makes it very challenging for Dave to manage both the code that is pending to be pushed into production and the development of the next feature that he is responsible for producing. When Dave's code is finally deployed into the production environment, occasionally unforeseen errors or problems occur. This mostly happens because Dave is focused on writing code for his development environment, and it's not identical to the production environment. Meet Dave's coworker Anna. Anna is a system administrator from the operations team. She is responsible for maintaining and assuring the uptime of the production environment. The number of servers that she needs to administer is constantly growing because her company continues to launch new products and customers are consuming more of their services. This increase of servers has caused some challenges for Anna. The tools that she used to administer a few servers are not as effective when used to administer a much larger volume of servers. This challenge affects how new code is deployed in her production environment. Usually, when new code is released, it takes a little massaging to fit into the production environment. This is why she requires code deployments to be scheduled and are only allowed once a month. Once new code is actually deployed, it's her responsibility to diagnose any errors or problems caused by these changes. Sometimes Anna feels as though the developers have tossed their work over the wall to her and her team. So, what can be done to help Dave and Anna work better? Ultimately, they want the same thing: happy customers. What if Dave, the developer, and Anna from operations worked better together, thought more alike, broke down silos, shared responsibilities? This would require them to change their mindset on how dev and ops work. So what is DevOps? DevOps integrates developers and operations teams in order to improve collaboration and productivity by automating infrastructure, automating workflows, and by continuously measuring application performance. If Anna and Dave's teams were more DevOps-oriented, they would do a few things differently. They would place more focus on automation. DevOps teams try to automate everything, from testing of new code to how infrastructure is provisioned. They would write software in small chunks that are integrated, tested, monitored, and deployed, usually in hours, versus the traditional way of writing large chunks of software over weeks or months, and then do weeks or months of testing. Plus, they will have identical development and production environments based on the same configurations. Writing small chunks of code will allow them to increase the frequency of deployments and improve the time to deploy new code. It also enables them to adopt an iterative process to monitor, measure, and improve the code and operations every day. Improve their ability to respond to market needs or other things that impact software. Instead of building and configuring software plus infrastructure manually on an ad hoc basis, Anna and Dave's teams would write configuration management code that describes how things should be built. As a result, they will have the ability to build infrastructure at scale to dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of servers in multiple locations using different types of hardware. Another change that a DevOps-oriented team would do is to use a source control system to help manage, track, and document all of the changes to both the application code and configuration management code. The change that Anna and Dave would implement is to adopt a discipline of application performance monitoring and optimization in almost real time. This will allow Dave and the rest of his developers to understand the performance impact of their changes. The ultimate goal is to have a production environment that gives their customers a great experience. So what benefit does having a DevOps-oriented team give Anna and Dave's company? Well, it allows them to increase the rate of software delivery and improves the company's time to market, potentially from months and weeks to days and hours. This will be a huge competitive advantage. It also allows them to maintain better business focus by automating their infrastructure so that they can focus on things that improve the business and their online content. They will spend more time on these activities that add more value to their organizations. When a company is able to build and offer better products, this means they have happier customers and happier developers. How does a DevOps-oriented team actually accomplish this? Well, as mentioned before, there needs to be a change in the mindset of the two groups that need to work closer together. The other component to the formula is getting the right tools. New tools are needed in this fast-paced world. They will need a tool that allows them to build and test code continuously. An example of this is Jenkins. They will need a tool for source control, such as GitHub. This will allow them to manage, track, and document all the changes to their application code and their configuration management code. They will need tools for configuration management, such as Chef, Puppet, and SaltStack. These tools will allow them to deploy applications in an automated fashion, maybe across hundreds or thousands of servers in different locations.
Now, when I said that, that DevOps was not a tool, I meant it in the same way that, that cooking or the culture around kitchens has to be preceded by the use of fire, right? Culture builds on tools and technologies, but it is a different way of looking at it. We cannot conflate the tools with the culture required to use those tools properly. I would say that DevOps is trying to serve in this delivery mode where we get an idea, we get it developed, and it gets deployed in a rational way very quickly to production. Sometimes, as soon as the developer checks in, we have had continuous integration for years. The code gets built, automated tests run. Any changes to infrastructure are automatically applied. Database changes are applied, and it automatically flows into production. That is one extreme. There are organizations that release not 10 times a day, 90 times a day, 100 times a day, whenever a developer checks in. I think there's a larger thing that it doesn't really have a name, but this idea that this delivery mode of DevOps allows us to understand business outcomes very quickly. It allows us to measure and learn so that we improve our ideas, just like the Lean startup. It requires that all of these people work together for the delivery piece, right? Just to get the delivery work. QA, operations, the delivery folks, training, the marketing folks. DevOps is right now talking about the technology stack, and I think it is slightly short-sighted, in the same way that Agile was short-sighted when it only talked about delivery. Now, kind of like fire, right? You can't do this until you have a good Agile team that releases quality stuff into their test environments, where the tests are automated and they have continuous integration. So, just like Fire being a precursor technology, Agile delivery is a precursor to DevOps. And we're going to start building on it, and it's going to start to move and more like business operations where we're doing a build, measure, learn very rapidly on the things that we're building. Tons of tools. You need people that are tool jockeys to be able to do this. You cannot do this with manual deployments. So, the question that remains is business agility. How fast can your organization learn, and why should we care? Why do I care how fast my organization learns? Well, it really does matter, because sometimes you crash. You don't learn from the marketplace, you don't learn from your mistakes, and you're no longer the king of the phone world. There's a great organization. If you ever get to see any of the other Hendrik Nyberg videos, I'm going to show a quick one now, or part of one. Hendrik Nyberg works at Spotify. He does great videos. And he admits that the Spotify is not perfect, but it illustrates why it is important for organizations to learn quickly. So we're just going to play a few minutes of this video.
Hey, you're back! Great! Now you've probably forgotten all about part 1, so let's do a quick recap. Our culture is based on agile principles. All engineering happens in squads, and we try to keep them loosely coupled and tightly aligned. We like cross-pollination and have an internal open source model for code. Squads do small and frequent releases, which is enabled by decoupling. Our self-service model minimizes the need for handoffs, and we use release trains and feature toggles to get stuff into production early and often. And since culture is all about the people, we focus on motivation, community, and trust, rather than structure and control. That was part 1. And now, I'd like to talk about failure. Our founder, Daniel, put it nicely. We aim to make mistakes faster than anyone else. Yeah, I know, sounds a bit crazy, but here's the idea. To build something really cool, we will inevitably make mistakes along the way, right? But each failure is also a learning. So when we do fail, we want it to happen fast, so we can learn fast, and therefore improve fast. It's a strategy for long-term success. It's like with kids. You can keep a toddler in the crib, and she'll be safe, but she won't learn much, and won't be very happy. If you instead let her run around and explore the world, she'll fail and fall sometimes, but she'll be happier and develop faster. And the wounds, well, they usually heal. So Spotify is a fail-friendly environment. We're more interested in fast failure recovery than failure avoidance. Our internal blog has articles like Celebrate Failure and stories like How We Shot Ourselves in the Foot. Some squads even have a fail wall where people show off their latest failures and learnings. Failing without learning is, well, just failing. So when something goes wrong, we usually follow up with a post-mortem. This is never about whose fault was it. It's about what happened. What did we learn? What will we change? Postmortems are actually part of our incident management workflow. So an incident ticket isn't closed when the problem is solved. It's closed when we've captured the learnings to avoid the same problem in the future. Fix the process, not just the product. In addition, all squads do retrospectives every few weeks to talk about what's working well and what to improve next. All in all, Spotify has a strong culture of continuous improvement, driven from below and supported from above. However, failure must be non-lethal, or we don't live to fail again. So we promote the concept of limited blast radius. The architecture is quite decoupled, so if a squad makes a mistake, it will usually only impact a small part of the system and not bring everything down. And since the squad has end-to-end responsibility for their stuff without handoffs, they can usually fix the problem fast. Also, most new features are rolled out gradually, starting with just a tiny percent of all users, and closely monitored. Once the feature proves to be stable, we gradually roll it out to the rest of the world. So if something goes wrong, it normally only affects a small part of the system for a small number of users for a short period of time. This limited blast radius gives squads courage to do lots of small experiments and learn really fast, instead of wasting time trying to predict and control all risk in advance. Mario Andretti puts it nicely. If everything's under control, you're going too slow. Alright, let's talk about product development. Our product development approach is based on lean startup principles and is summarized by the mantra, think it, build it, ship it, tweak it. The biggest risk is always building the wrong thing. So before deciding to build a new product or major feature, we try to inform ourselves with research. Do people actually want this? Does it solve a real problem for them? Then we define a narrative, kind of like a press release or elevator pitch, showing off the benefits. For example, radio you can save or follow your favorite artist. We also define hypotheses. How will this feature impact user behavior and our core metrics? Will they share more music? Will they log in more often? And we build various prototypes and have people try them out to get a sense of what the feature might feel like and how people react. Once we feel confident this thing is worth building, we go ahead and build an MVP, minimum viable product. Just enough to fulfill the narrative, but far from feature complete. You might call it the minimum lovable product. The next stage of learning happens once we put something into production, so we want to get there as quickly as possible. We release the MVP to just a few % of all users, and use techniques like A/B testing to measure the impact and test our hypotheses. The squad monitors the data and continues tweaking and redeploying until they see the desired impact. Then they gradually roll out to the rest of the world, while taking the time needed to sort out practical stuff like operational issues and scaling. By the time the product or feature is fully rolled out, we already know it's a success, because if it isn't, we don't roll it out. Impact is always more important than velocity, so a feature isn't really considered done until it has achieved the desired impact.
So here you have a situation where not only is the development, delivery, and operations team concerned about getting something rolled out, getting it operationally stable by doing what's sometimes called canary release, where you release it to a small percentage. They're also concerned about impact. They own the business impact for that thing. This is the enabling creative behavior for organizations, and it is enabled by their ability to release, roll back, and scale it up as needed. DevOps, the technology, the tools behind DevOps give us the capability to be able to do that, and it is going to be huge. So the Calms model of DevOps, and its first item says culture. DevOps is a culture. It is automation, absolutely automation of everything. Cloud is a magical thing in this arena. We can scale up our infrastructure as need be, and because it's virtualized, we can develop on a model that looks exactly like production, or as close as it can be. Lean is the thing that was added by Jez Humboldt. Small batch sizes. It works in manufacturing, it works in logistics, it works for Walmart. Small batches mean something, and it is no small thing. It means we can optimize and improve very rapidly. Measurement, not only of the operational stuff, but also of the business impact. Are people sharing more music on Spotify? Yes, cool. Let's roll this out to more and more users so everybody has it in their hands. And this idea of a sharing, open environment where tools and techniques that help smooth the flow can rapidly move throughout the organization. So, this is kind of a culture shock for most organizations. So, Agile, integrate continuously, that's great. You know, we want to check it in, we want to run the tests that are automated, we want to know the system is working, we want to make sure that our piece of code works with another team's piece of code. This is a well-worn path. Quality is continuous. Automated testing, bringing testers in early, ensuring that security concerns, internationalization concerns are taken care of early on the front end, tested continuously, continuous load testing. Automated deployments. If you are in an organization where you have continuous integration, you're automatically pushing to your test environment, and then you have to hand over a bundle of manual scripts for your operations teams, I am sorry for you. Because you have the automation on your side of the dev shop that they need on the operations side. It's used to see that all the time. Delivery is continuous, this idea that small chunks of code flow into production. It could be that there is that one person allowed to push the button that says, yeah, this goes live. And that is okay. Build, measure, learn, and operate. This idea that we're going to start to look at the business as a huge feedback loop where we're trying new features, we're tweaking the features we have to maximize business outcome. And this idea that we should, in fact, break things in production. Huge culture shocks, right? No walls. Who here has walls between QA, dev, and their operations teams, right? And what do you do across those boundaries? You negotiate. We need to release weekly. We have a monthly release window. Has it been tested by the QA? QA says, well, you didn't bring us in till late, so we need more time, right? It is about all three of those roles in the organization not becoming the same, but becoming a team that work together to optimize quality and output for the business, automating absolutely everything that they can so that they're ensuring high quality with high confidence, with high scalability and operability. Right? You hand it over to your run team, they say, you know, the logs are filled with system outs. We can't run this, right? They need to be brought up front. Continuous integration, just do this. Waterfall teams, agile teams, just start doing this. This too tends to be a huge culture shock. We can't get the environments that we need to do continuous integration for your delivery team. That needs to change. Quality is continuous and not a phase. When I say test, I really mean everything. I don't just mean the traditional QA, QC. Right? I'm working in a government engagement right now. Where do our 508 testers sit on the team that's developing the software? They're testing it as it's being developed to make sure it's compliant. Because we don't want to get to the end and have this big gate that says, oh, by the way, you're not compliant, you can't release. This requires a cultural shift. Security, the same. All of these things need to be brought into the fold. The silos need to be broken down to be able to do this. Continuous deployment. What does this mean? What would this mean for your organization? Anybody got something that... What could it mean? Yeah, there's no boundaries, but how do we do that? Right? You check in code, and this pipeline in many organizations is automated. It means that everything that you need to do to assure the quality either has to be automated in this pipeline or needs to be built into the behaviors of the team. You don't have inspectors walking around a Toyota plant looking over people's shoulder for quality. It's built into the system, into the behaviors, and into every part of the way that organization operates. That is critical for DevOps. Now, there are interim stages you can get to, right? We get it built, it's deployed on our staging environment, and then there's some governance around really releasing it into production. But most organizations that do DevOps start to work towards a pre-governed model. When I hand a team a story card, I know that their behaviors will deliver high-quality, tested software that is compliant and can operate, in our environment. The authority to develop is the authority to deploy, and it just goes live when it's ready. That is a huge game changer for organizations. Everything, every feature release looks like it is as easy to implement and roll back as a minor bug release. Risk goes down, our time to market goes up, and it is not a panic when we have to do something in a very short time. Why? Practice, practice, practice. It's how we got to Carnegie Hall, right? We started playing chopsticks, and now we've moved it on up. But to be able to do that emergency, we need this to get this out in 48 hours because we have this huge competitive pressure on us, and we need to be able to support, this new feature for one of our partner integrations. Means that, okay, yeah, I think we can get the development done. All the other stuff has been practiced. Right? It is not a panic. Build, measure, learn, and operate. This is sort of my idea of what I'll call, sort of BizOps, right? Where we start to have these ideas, even in stodgy companies. Maybe customer service folks would be able to give our customers a little better service on the phone if we laid the screen out this way. Let's test that. Let's A/B test that in our production environment. And let's deploy it, operate, measure, and learn. The organization that learns the fastest wins in today's competitive markets. This is one of the more recent radical ideas that has shaken up DevOps, or a culture of operations, cult ops. Coined that phrase, because this seems all very cultish. But Netflix has this, they said we need to be able to survive outages or problems in our cloud infrastructure, right? So what do? Do they have defined test windows when there are outages? No, they had highly skilled engineers build things that would go around and break things in their production environment during peak times. Started off with Chaos Monkey that just would go and randomly disable servers or enterprise server bus segments. Why? Because Netflix wanted to be able to survive outages in the cloud or in their infrastructure. When it didn't work, they would scramble to fix it. Did they turn off Chaos Monkey? No, they do not. They learn to recover from that outage like it was a real outage. How do they survive outages? Practice, practice, practice. Now, if they could just get everybody to not surf at the same time, it would still be fast streaming down. But their uptime, your performance is slow, but their uptime is fairly high. They started with Chaos Monkey. They then said, we're going to start building a whole simian army of things that will go into our production system, introduce delays, look for servers that might have security leaks and shut them down, look for things that are not behaving quite well and shut them down in production. How many folks think they could sell this in their organization right now? How many people think Netflix is likely to be around for a while? Maybe, maybe not, right? They'll probably survive the collapse of the DVD. But they're betting that if they don't have uptime, they will not be around. If their video streaming service is the one that gets dinged. So this is not cutting edge stuff for them. This is a way to thrive and survive. They might get out-competed, but their technology is going to ensure that it's not because of their operations. No, by the way, they share a lot of this code. Does that sound like your organization? DevOps, there's a culture of making things better for businesses operating. Now, can you use DevOps in a closed, cloak environment? Absolutely. Right? You don't have to be giving these ideas away, but most people know that the real competition is not the staff, it's the business, or they shouldn't be in business. Those are huge cultural disruptors. all of these things are true in organizations to get there. You can start small. You can just automate the monitoring of your software in production and automate the deployment. That's a great first step. Never let perfect get in the way of good. But eventually, if you want to get there, it's governance without K's. It's continuous improvement. It is a lot of things to a lot of people. It is not a tool. It is not a team. It's a cultural artifact of an organization supported by tools and teams.
What is a single piece flow?
Single piece flow is this idea that if I have a change or a new feature, it flows straight to production without, it comes from Toyota production system where you're not working on multiple models of the same car at the same time. You get one piece and pull it through the system in its entirety. One every 53 seconds out in the Georgia time thing. So, to wrap up, because I've been getting the signs from Chelsea, thank you very much. So, you know, what can you do? How best can you pursue this type of cultural change, learning in your organization? What could you do tomorrow or the next week to get a little bit closer? Henry Nyberg has this idea where they dream of what awesome would be. He defines awesome. And he says, awesome is not a place. You never really get there. But once you've defined awesome, and maybe DevOps is awesome for you, then you say, what are the next 2 or 3 concrete steps we can take to get a little bit better? And you work on those. And then you look back up and say, has awesome changed? No? Okay, what are the next 3? Or awesome moved on us? What are the next 3 concrete steps? It is like lean, process improvement, build, measure, learn. Plan, do, check, act. Build it, ship it, tweak it. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer some questions as well. Yeah?
You said you're working in a government installation.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get around the
IVNV is constantly working with the teams and inspecting the automated tests in the pipeline. Fortunately, this is they also have they have a pass from the CIO right now.
Yeah, that's how you get around it.
But that is the releasing new guidance around team managed deployments. It is a process of inspecting to ensure that all of the 508 is taken care of. That they periodically do, bug bashes or exploratory testing along with test automation. That everything is automated out to the field and that they can roll back easily if there is an incident.
We got to take keep the IBMD separate because it has to be a full contract. They're not allowed to interface with us.
Depends on the interpretation of that ruling. They have separate governance authority. It doesn't mean that they can't interact. That is a contracting behavior that I see a lot. Right, and some of the modular contracts, we can talk about it afterwards, but some of the modular contracts are being written in with collaboration with government and other contractors as part of the performance measures. So, yes?
Can you talk a little bit about security and like that, a lot of security issues in testing as opposed to just
Yes, so there's a couple of ways that we generally do that. In this type of environment, there's always a staging environment with current production in it. If you're constantly inspecting that for security flaws, and it's okay, and every other piece that goes out is relatively small in size, looking about the size as a small hotfix, you can start to look at the risk of security being a problem is lower. It is not zero. And you can also, as part of the pipeline for, let's say, a merge request into the master branch, which is going to go out to production, might require someone with security expertise to look at that code and say, did something substantive change that needs a security check? You build the gates into the upstream pipeline but once it is set to go, it may just go into a staging environment that is where it gets tested before the final push, but that final push should be automated as well. Ideally, you want inspection early and often so that it can just flow. Nothing is saying you have to release. Once you have that option, then you have power to say, when do I want to release, not when could I.
Do you run the automated tests in production as well, or are your automated tests limited to development tests?
Most teams start with very few automated tests in production, but they may depend on systems like New Relic or operational monitoring systems to monitor things in production. People taking the cue from Netflix say we should have constant tests, not only for the bad stuff that can happen, but for the things that we expect to occur, or that we expect to work should still remain working. I would recommend finding those tests that can go in and not disrupt, corrupt data, or make sure you have good segmentation of those tests. But I would recommend it. I can tell you not a lot of teams do it, but they will rely on automated monitoring things such as New Relic or plenty of other tools out there. You see the big drill right now. Yes?
So we want to be doing this, and we started doing this with Jenkins, CI, started to get the automated testing rolled out, but I feel like I'm going to lose whatever's left of my hair by the time we actually get there.
So time is short then.
So the question is, what suggestions do you have to really speed up the process, whether it's bringing consultants, offshoring with leads, ready-made solutions, or tools you might be able to leverage to kind of just increase the velocity on this?
Yeah, bring in expertise, or hopefully you can hire in expertise, grow it. Certainly, some of the off-the-shelf platform as a service offerings allow you to quickly bootstrap the technical end. It's the cultural piece that is harder to get going, but it can't start until you get the technical stuff worked out. It is almost hard to keep up with the improvements in virtual and cloud deployment technologies because they happen so rapidly. So you need someone, if you're really dedicated to DevOps, you need some folks that have experience in that area, and you need some real strategic focus on getting tools in-house, but I would also recommend that you become somewhat tool agnostic. I really like this idea that I'm always able to deploy on 2 different type of cloud infrastructures always, right? Because that was the big problem with like J2EE containers, right? All of a sudden you get vendor lock-in, and you can't, you have no option when Amazon Web Services, and you know what? We're just a bookstore. We're not doing that anymore. Don't do that, right? You don't want to get locked in. So automation should mean you have an automated deploy on multiple types of cloud infrastructure. You're going to need to bring the folks in to help move the culture as well. Great, thank you very much.